This mysterious land is always making headlines. From the Six-Day War to the Yom Kippur War, the 22-day and 33-day wars, and now the events after October 7. Is Israel really seeking peace, or is it just a slogan? Why is Israel, out of all countries, so caught up in war and conflict? Are the Arab nations truly to blame for all the wars involving Israel? And what exactly does Netanyahu mean when he talks about a new Middle East? This is the story that official historians would rather ignore. Gradually, Weizmann's efforts received official support from the British government. Britain supported the Jews going to Palestine and establishing a Jewish state there. In 1914, World War I broke out in Europe between France and England on one side against Germany and Austria-Hungary on the other. Later, even the Ottoman Empire led by Germany joined this front. Now we turn to a 67-word statement called the Balfour Declaration. This statement can answer many basic questions about Israel, because it is a relatively new country with a relatively new government, made up of people from different parts of the world, organized to create a new place. It may seem very natural to us today that America, England, the great powers, support Israel. But what happened? How did such support come about? Even America allocates a large budget to Israel every year. What is the reason for this support? The Balfour Declaration explains many reasons behind this support. Balfour refers to a person who was a politician in Britain at the beginning of the 20th century. The Balfour Declaration is an official statement issued by the British government in 1917 at the end of World War I. Supporting the idea that Jews should settle in Palestine. At the time, Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire, with a predominantly Muslim population, as well as some Christian and Jewish minorities. So, when was the Balfour Declaration issued? It was issued in 1917 during the final stages of World War I, when supporters of the Zionist movement gained influence within the British government. Mr. Balfour, whose name appears in this statement, was not Prime Minister at the time. He was of the opposition party to the government, but he was an important politician. In the second half of the war, from 1916 to 1918, two important events took place in determining the fate of Palestine. The first event was the signing of the Sykes-Picot Agreement, a secret agreement that outlined how Britain and France would divide the Arab lands between them after the war, and how the remnants of the Ottoman Empire would be divided. In this agreement, Palestine is also mentioned as an international territory, which is known as the Sykes-Picot Agreement. But in Britain there was a change in the government and Mr. Balfour became the foreign minister. Unlike the previous government that believed in reforming the Ottoman Empire, this new government believed that it could not be reformed, and that the empire should be dismantled and dismembered after the war. They also pressured the military forces to gain public support and to gain popular support for the war and the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire. They propagated that we should conquer that land and achieve a great victory in that area so that the people of our country feel proud. We must reach Jerusalem. Britain had to manage the three parties interested in the Palestinian question: the French, the Arabs, and the Zionists. When did the government negotiate with the Zionists? This was done by Mr. Balfour, the foreign secretary who we said was talking to the Zionists. Now it had to talk to Weizmann, who was the new leader of the Zionist Foundation. They had talked a lot before, but they always said it was unofficial and covered up by other talk and activities. At this stage, the negotiations were becoming formal. because Britain took control and told the Zionists that it was better to reach an agreement with us than with America or France. It is no more than 67 words, but it has been widely discussed in numerous books and articles. Its essence can be summarized in 4 main points. First, the establishment of a national home for the Jews in Palestine. There is a debate here because it does not say a Jewish state, it says a national home for the Jews. The declaration is deliberately vague about exactly what "in Palestine" means. Exactly where? What it does not specify is that it does not say that Palestine should become a Jewish state, that a home for the Jews should be built in Palestine, or that, for example, the Jews living in Palestine should have civil rights. Or does it say that no one has the right to violate the rights of the Jews outside Palestine? Balfour's statement is really vague, his language is not precise, and it seems to have been written that way on purpose. We must pay attention to the generalities rather than the details. Its generality suggests support. England was receptive to Zionist ideas, and the reaction to it was more or less what was expected of Jews, especially Zionists.
Please like this video and subscribe the channel. Thank you.
The legend becomes a living reality, and on the 5th of Iyar, May the 14th, 1948, 44 years after Herzl's death, David Ben-Gurion proclaims the founding of the State of Israel in Palestine. With the proclamation of the state, the gates are thrown open, and among the ships carrying tens of thousands of immigrants from Europe and the East sails the Theodor Herzl.
This was the first time that international support for the Jewish community was formed. But on the other side of the Palestinians, the Arabs protested strongly on behalf of the Palestinians and said that several European countries had decided that non-natives should live in an Asian land in the Arab world. What does this mean? The Arabs outside Palestine also said that we would come and rule ourselves. In the midst of World War II, various factors, one of the most important of which was the Holocaust, led to the establishment of a land called Israel in West Asia by dividing a country called Palestine. Jews who suffered a lot from the Second World War and especially the Holocaust emigrated to this area. On May 14, 1948, the day before the end of the British Mandate, David Ben-Gurion, head of the Jewish Agency, announced the establishment of a Jewish state in the land of Israel to be called the State of Israel.
States went to war with the Israelis after this. This is a big moment. 4 p.m., Rothschild Boulevard, David Ben-Gurion officially declaring Israel an independent state. The Jews finally have a home. His talk is pretty nationalistic and very thoughtful. He stresses on points like the state of Israel would strive to develop the land for the good of all its residents, be based upon foundations of liberty, justice, and peace, and that Israel would ensure social and political rights to all citizens without discrimination of religion, race, or sex.
Namely Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, and Egypt, with a total number of about 54,000 soldiers, invaded the territory of Palestine. At the time of the invasion of the Arab troops, the total number of the Israeli army was about 45,000 soldiers, so the Israeli leadership hastily mobilized. On the very first day of the invasion, Tel Aviv, as well as Israeli military bases, were attacked by Egyptian aircraft, and the Egyptian ground forces launched an offensive in the area of Gaza City. As a result of the offensive, the Egyptian army managed to break the resistance of the Israeli troops to occupy the city of Ashdod on May 29.
The only mention in the text of the declaration about borders is the use of the term Eretz Israel, land of Israel. The following day, the armies of 4 Arab countries, Egypt, Syria, Transjordan, present-day Jordan, and Iraq, invaded the British-administered parts of Palestine, starting the Arab-Israeli War of 1948. Meanwhile, forces from Yemen, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, and Sudan also joined the war. At first, their goal was open aggression and preventing the establishment of a Jewish state. Some Arab leaders talked about throwing the Jews into the sea. The Jews were worried that the invading Arab forces would commit genocide against them. The Arab League announced that the invasion was to restore order and prevent further bloodshed. After a year of war, a truce was announced and temporary borders were established called the Green Line. Jordan annexed the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, while Egypt occupied the Gaza Strip on the other side. The United Nations estimated that more than 700,000 Palestinians were displaced or fled during Israeli advances during the conflict, known in Arabic as the Nakbat, or catastrophe, while about 156,000 remained and became Arab Israeli citizens. Israel was accepted as a member by a majority vote on May 11, 1949. Efforts by Israel and Jordan to negotiate a peace treaty failed after the British government, fearing Egypt's reaction to such a treaty, expressed its opposition to the Jordanian government. In the early years of the government, the labor Zionist movement led by Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion dominated the political arena in Israel.
Israel, born of war, takes in Tel Aviv. The crowds are so big that a giant parade has to be canceled. In synagogues throughout the nation, worshippers recite from the Psalms of praise, "Enough have you sat in the vale of weeping," and they translate their words into rejoicing.
After years of conflicts, Israel eventually solidified itself as a country, and today it enjoys full support from the US, the UK, and many Western nations.
Please like this video and subscribe the channel. Thank you.
However, the events of October 7 triggered yet another war in the region. Following the war with Hamas in Lebanon, a ceasefire was put in place, but not everyone in Israel was happy about it. Some believe the war should have continued until Hamas was completely destroyed. On top of that, after the fall of Assad's regime, Israel took control of certain areas in Syria, ignoring international borders.
Take action against possible threats. One of them is the collapse of the Separation of Forces Agreement from 1974 between Israel and Syria. This agreement held for 50 years. Last night it collapsed. The Syrian army abandoned its positions. We gave the Israeli army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile force embeds itself right next to the border of Israel. This is a temporary defensive position until a suitable arrangement is found.
So here's the big question. Where does Israel stop? Was the land given to them in 1948 not enough, or is there a bigger plan in motion? Do Israeli leaders have the right to annex parts of Syria or any land they desire? Or is this endless cycle of violence doomed to continue?
The October 7th attacks were paraded through the crowd and handed over to the Red Cross on a stage set up in the middle of the city. These scenes depicting that showcase and the convoy of vans waiting to drive the women to an unknown location where helicopters were awaiting.